And Venezuela, rather than trying to distract from its own failings by making up false accusations against diplomats from the United States, the government ought to focus on addressing the legitimate grievances of the Venezuelan people. So, along with the Organization of American States, we call on the Venezuelan government to release protesters that it's detained and engage in real dialogue.
President Obama there speaking in Mexico yesterday. Welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. More on the situation in Venezuela. Leopoldo Lopez, who you see on the screen right now, leader of the opposition party in Venezuela, turned himself into National Guards on Tuesday after 3 people were killed in clashes with government forces. Speaking with a megaphone to more than 5,000 people, Lopez said that he doesn't fear going to jail, which he's there right now. He's also telling people to continue their active protests against the government, and he regrets nothing as things continue. I'm quoting Lopez here: "If my jailing serves to awaken the people of Venezuela, then it will be well worth the infamous imprisonment imposed upon me directly with cowardice by Nicolas Maduro," Lopez told a sea of supporters who, like him, were dressed in white to symbolize nonviolence, a push to nonviolence in Venezuela. The initial charges against Lopez are vandalism, the incitement of violence, but the latest reports from emerging now from Caracas say that he is also being tried for murder and terrorism as well. Joining me now to discuss all this via Skype is the former ambassador to Venezuela, Otto Reich. Ambassador Reich, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you with us. Now, this current situation in Venezuela, it's attracting global attention here. Amnesty International released a statement saying that the arrest of Lopez smacks of a politically motivated attempt to silence dissent in the country. Now, why has the Venezuelan government reacted so dramatically to what started as a peaceful protest?
Because the Venezuelan government is desperate. I think, we get so little information in the United States about the rest of the world, and particularly about Latin America, that we don't realize what dire straits the Venezuelan government is in. It's run out of money, and I think we all can appreciate what it means to run out of money, whether you're a family or a country. Venezuela, which has the largest reserves of oil possibly in the world, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, has run out of cash because of incompetence, because of Marxist economic policies, and because of corruption. So what they've done is they have cracked down politically because the people are tired of standing in line for scarce food and all other commodities. And they're protesting in the streets because on top of that, the government has shut down the press, shut down dissent. They control the courts, they control the military, the police, the legislative branch of government, and they're just driving Venezuela into a disaster.
And we heard similar comments from Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen briefly just a few seconds ago. Now, looking at the Leopoldo Lopez situation, now that he is in custody, how do you see this playing out with the Venezuelan government? Will he be used as a puppet in all this? Do you see them taking more severe action against Lopez?
Well, there's some reports, which I hope are false, that the government prosecutors, the Maduro prosecutors, are asking for 30 years in prison for Leopoldo Lopez on charges of murder, among other things, when it was like the political police called SEBIN that fired on the peaceful, unarmed demonstrators led by Leopoldo Lopez. So this is an Orwellian situation.
And it speaks to what you said before, just how desperate the government is in this situation, Maduro's government. Now, as we look at the opposition party here, Lopez's party and also Enrique Capules's, let's say there is some sort of coup here, or there is a complete revolution here. Is there a coalition among the opposition parties? Is there enough of a coalition there to create a legitimate government in Venezuela?
Oh, yes. I mean, there are plenty of people qualified to take office, but this is not what the opponents are asking. They're asking Maduro to step down and for the government to call a new election. First of all, Maduro's election has been questioned by most observers that it is alleged, I believe, and I believe that he stole the election of last April, that Capriles actually won it. But the government controls everything. They control the media. They control the courts, as I said. They control the electoral council, the people who counted the votes. And they control the Supreme Court. Chavez packed the Supreme Court with his own supporters. Used to be 12 people. He fired 5, replaced them, and then added another 3 for 20. 20 Supreme Court justices, of whom he named over half. So The government of Maduro is not a democratic government. What the people are asking is that he step down and allow a free election, internationally supervised, so the people of Venezuela can determine who will.
And David Patton, Ambassador, who's with us here as well. Mr. Patton wanted to ask you some questions as well.
Ambassador, good to speak with you. I'd like to know your assessment whether there is any chance that what's going on in Venezuela could either leak over to or affect the Castro government in Cuba. A lot of support in South Florida, for example, among the Cuban-American population for what's going on in Venezuela, for Lopez. Could this, there are economic ties between the two countries. Can you see a circumstance where maybe what's happening in Venezuela will have an impact in Cuba?
Absolutely. And the person who agrees with you, two persons, are named Fidel and Raul Castro. The Cuban economy today is being kept afloat by Venezuelan subsidies of free oil, about between 100 and 130,000 barrels a day. I've heard these estimates from Venezuelan and other oil experts. Let's say it's 120,000 barrels. It's about $5 billion. That's the same a year in Venezuelan gifts to Cuba. Cuba doesn't pay for this. This is the same amount that the Soviet Union provided to Cuba for 30 years in the Cold War, and that was one of the contributors to the bankruptcy of the Soviet Union. So actually, we should be grateful for that. It contributed to the end of the evil empire.
And so we can see similar ripple effects here coming from this as well. Interesting to get that insight from the ambassador there, David. And great question, because it's all connected. It is all seemingly connected here, and we see the constant appetite for freedom in this country, as we've seen in other countries throughout history. When the government can't step in, when the economics present these types of situations, the people demand freedom and they want change and they want democracy, and that certainly isn't going away. So we'll keep our eye on the situation in Venezuela. Ambassador Reich, thank you very much for being with us, and thanks for your insight. Always great to talk to you, especially about Venezuela, because you have so much insight into what's going on in the country and in the region as a whole. And we want to get your take on the discussion. You can always reach out to us in all forms of social media. You can tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax, or all of us here at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. We have much more for you ahead on the show coming up. There's a move on Capitol Hill to rein in the president's executive orders. Are they legal? We'll talk with that congressman in just a second, right after this.